Hey, welcome. This video is part of my Learning to Practice Mindfulness series. In the last video, we looked at the first step of mindfulness, which is essentially waking up. It is remembering to practice. In the first place, it's coming out of the trance state and coming into the present moment. It is kind of shifting from being identified with our experience to not being identified with our experience, to being the observer of our experience. This video is about the second step in practicing mindfulness, which is sensory clarity. It is dialing up the resolution of our experience. We live most of our lives in autopilot or in a state of reactivity. We experience the world as we expect it to be. Scientists have actually discovered that we hallucinate reality. We take in our sensory data, kind of the auditory and visual, and then our brain constructs it, and our brain constructs it largely along the lines of as we expect it to be. For example, if you look at a pattern and you see a face in it, afterwards you really see that face. You can't unsee the face. Similarly, if you're listening to music, you can't make out the lyrics, but they sound like a certain thing. You can kind of make up the lyrics. Then you can't unhear that. They really start to hear that way. That's because our brain starts to think that that is what's happening. Now, there are a lot of experiments that have gone on to really prove this and to really show how much of our experience is a result of our expectation. Now, this gets especially interesting if we think about our feelings. Let's take, for example, anxiety. When anxiety comes up, we very rarely take the chance to really look at what we're experiencing. Usually what happens is it throws us into the state of reactivity. All of our past experiences of anxiety come together into a sort of composite experience. In psychology, we call these complexes. We've had many experiences throughout our life that have triggered a similar feeling. It triggers all the associated thoughts and feelings along with it, and these experiences get far more intense because of it. We're no longer experiencing just the anxiety in the moment, but we're experiencing all the anxiety we've ever experienced, or at least a flavor of it. So the negative projection on our experience makes it a lot more difficult than the actual experience itself in that moment. So while our brain constructs our experience, it also filters out a lot of our experience. In any moment, there are millions of things we could be aware of. For example, right now you're probably aware of me and my voice, but you can also be aware of the feeling in your feet, or the feeling in your hands, or maybe some subtle background noise. Our brain naturally blocks out most of our experience and only lets a bit in. The problem is that if we have these negative patterns, which we all have, if we have this unconscious reactivity to our experience, then the blocking it out keeps those things in their habitual stuckness. We have all been programmed by our experience. All of our experiences growing up, all the media and information and news we take in, these things have programmed us. And our unconscious reactivity is a result of this programming. So long as we're not paying attention, so long as we're not clear on all of these processes that are happening, they're going to keep happening. If we want to disrupt the processes, if we want to experience life in a more open way without all this negative reactivity, we have to bring more clarity to our experience. We have to see what is actually happening. We have to zoom in on these processes as they're unfolding in real time and watch them. The awareness is what unsticks things. It's what allows these patterns to change. So while we might naturally want to not be aware of the uncomfortable experiences, if we're feeling anxiety, we usually don't want to pay attention to it. We usually want to focus somewhere else. But actually going into it, focusing with it, being present with it, noticing the subtle feelings, noticing the thoughts, this type of paying attention and deepening our clarity, that is going to allow these processes to come unhooked and to start to change. So as we are exploring our sensory experience in the practice of mindfulness, we want to pay special attention to two areas. This is the mind and the body. Specifically, thinking and how thoughts occur to us, and then feeling and how feelings are occurring to us. If we look first at our feelings, check out what you're feeling in this moment and be really curious. Notice the subtle sensations, the texture of the experience. Experience your feelings as if you're feeling them for the first time. Now you can close your eyes, it might be helpful, and then just tune in to the chest and abdomen area, and even the face as well. This is where most feelings occur for us. And just notice what subtle sensations are there. Notice if the feelings have a density if they have a vibratory quality. What's the texture of each feeling? Where is the feeling centered and rooted? Is it expanding out or is it contracting in? We want to really be curious about all these subtle sensations, bring them more into awareness, and in doing that, not only do they become less overwhelming, but they become more fluid and less stuck. So now if we look at thoughts, we can examine 2 dimensions of thought. This can be a paradigm shifting revelation for a lot of people, that thoughts occur in auditory, which is sound, and image, which is visual. So we can look at thoughts as sounds and images. So right now, if I were to say, think of a bird, where do you see that bird? Where is the bird appearing for you? Often if your eyes are open and you're focusing on something in front of you, which I imagine your eyes are open, you're seeing me, the bird might appear in the peripheral, or it can appear kind of like overlaid in this kind of translucent form. So be really curious. How are your thoughts? How are the visual images appearing to you? And then close your eyes and see, where do you see this bird? What does the bird look like? Is it opaque, translucent? Is it in the peripheral around the edges, or is it in the center? Is it in front of your eyes or behind your eyes? So just be really curious about how we experience our visual images, how we experience visual thinking, and then the other piece is auditory. And so for the auditory, you can say your own name in your head right now. And just listen to that voice. Where does it appear? For most people, it's kind of in between the ears. Sometimes it's a bit lower, a bit back. And just get a sense of the space in which this occurs, as well as the visual, the auditory. It's all happening up here. And to just bring more awareness to this space and to be able to watch this space, the mindfulness practice is bringing more awareness to these 2 domains of thinking, which is the visual images, how we imagine things to be or how we remember them being, and then also the auditory sensations, which is our inner talk, or even memories of music or memories of sounds. So when we're having an overwhelming experience, tune in and notice what's happening in the body, what's happening in the mind. So you can split your experience up into 3 domains. You can look at the body sensations, just be present with them. Notice where in your body do you feel the sensations? What are the qualities of the feeling? Are they expanding? Are they contracting? Are they moving? Are they dense? Are they heavy? Are they light? So to just be really clear with what the physical experience of the feelings are. And then to be aware of thinking, how we experience thoughts. Where are the images playing over and over in our mind? What's the inner talk playing over and over? As we bring more experience to these domains, 1, they become less intense. So the intensity goes down many notches. The other is that the patterns become less fixed. There's more space and there's more freedom in allowing these things to not be so rigid or so reactive. So often if we're having a really challenging experience, we think we need some big fix. We think we need some massive breakthrough, some revelation that's going to change and shift this experience. What mindfulness teaches is that just bringing awareness, bringing this non-judgmental, this open awareness to our experience and just watching it unfold, that in itself changes the experience. And over time, the more we can just be in this observer and be clear about what we're experiencing, the more our experience changes organically, the more it shifts on its own. We don't actually have to do anything aside from watching it and just being really clear about it. And that in itself allows this higher intelligence to come in and reorganize these things, reorganize our thoughts and feelings so they're less overwhelming. The awareness itself softens and unravels the neurotic intensity of our thoughts and feelings. This practice is essentially unconditioning ourselves. We are watching our conditioning happen. We are watching our reactivity unfold. We are watching as we have an experience, look what feelings and thoughts are triggered, and look how those kind of cascade and form into other thoughts and feelings. And by bringing more awareness to this, the programming softens and it allows there to be more freedom for our own choice and our own responsiveness. Instead of being reactive to our experience, we can be responsive, but the first step is just bringing more awareness. It is looking, it is being aware. Often as we practice this, there is a moment of, oh no, I'm really screwed up. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of feelings there. There's a lot of thoughts there. It can be overwhelming at first, and that is normal because we're taking things that are often not super conscious, things that we're not really clear about. And as we bring more clarity, we realize how big and intense they are. And this is normal, and it's the first step and a really important step in these things changing. It is just noticing the bigness of them, noticing how intense they are, noticing how much we're thinking and how neurotic and repetitive our thoughts are, noticing how much we're feeling discomfort in our body all the time. These low levels of anxiety or restlessness, they're there constantly. So it could be overwhelming to realize the bigness of this, but the realization and the clarity coming to them is what allows them to shift and change. That's essentially just a quick intro into sensory clarity, becoming more clear about our experience in the context of mindfulness. It is the second step for becoming more mindful, so stay tuned for the third and final step in the next video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and if you have any questions, please leave the questions in the comments. I will try my best to answer them. Thank you for tuning in, and wish you well in your clarity practice.